Good morning, everyone. Sorry for coming on late. Something's happening with my camera on the computer. So anyway, welcome to Ascension How-Tos. I'm Angela Blaha, your Ascension Master and Healer. The energies have been intense, right? And I know that a lot of you have been experiencing them. And so let's get right to how to set up boundaries, because it's very important that we're creating boundaries for ourselves so that we aren't, taking on everybody else's stuff. So what do we need to set or create boundaries? Well, again, because when we don't have boundaries, we keep our energy very loose. Our belief systems are very loose. Our emotions become very loose because we're taking on someone else's boundaries, right? So last week we talked about being an empath and how taking on someone else's emotions is hard, and it's not really the best for us because we get confused and we don't know what's ours and what's not ours. So let's say you're an empath, which everyone is, and you are taking on other people's emotions without actually even knowing that you're taking them on. Now, your belief systems get involved when you don't have appropriate boundaries for yourself, because the belief systems create the doubt, the worry, the anxiety, the depression. All right? And if you have very loose boundaries about who you are, why you're here, what your experience is about, then these just continue to create that lack mentality, those ideas and thoughts and belief systems that tell you that you really can't do something, when we know that those are all just basically lies, right? So it's the belief systems that hold you back from creating a sense of, I can't really do it, because of the lack of a boundary. Now, when a boundary is broken, for example, when your boundaries break, then you move out of alignment with who you really are and why you're here. So you have to work on those belief systems. You have to work on your confidence. You have to work on your words that describe who you are and why you're here. None of us want to do all that extra work. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that extra work, right? I want to be able to set a boundary that I can stick to and not ever have to worry about again. Are you with me? So, your mindset is one of the boundaries that is worth looking at and is worth creating very strict boundaries about, because thank you for the hearts. Good morning, Belia. So what you want to do is be very strict with your own mindset, right? Like create a practice around how you're thinking, how you believe yourself to be. Have it be aligned with who you're creating. Energetic boundaries that are very loose. Mindset is an energetic boundary because you're an energy being and that's all that there is. So if you are very loose in your mindset, then those emotions from other people will come in and create thoughts in your mind that are not yours, because you're taking on that kind of energy. So the purpose to having really good boundaries with yourself is just so that you, again, bring in more and more clarity about who you are and why you're here. Now, to set a boundary, words are very, very important when you're setting boundaries. Why? Because they either accurately describe what you're trying to do or they inaccurately describe what you're trying to do. And as we all know, words hold a lot of power because it's the language that we use for this body to communicate with another body. or it's this body that we use to communicate with nature, or the cosmos, or your soul self, right? So those words that you're using are super important to describe the boundary that you're wanting to set. So indicators that your boundaries are not set or aligned with who you are. So the first indicator should be that your feelings don't match your words. Right? There's something that feels off about it. If your feelings and your words don't describe what you're trying to create as a boundary, that's an indicator that you're not using the right words, or that you have emotions that aren't yours. The second indicator that something isn't aligning is that you have confusion about it. If you are confused about what kind of a boundary to create, that means that you have someone else's energy in your energy and it's confusing you. The third thing is if you have shifts in your emotions or your sensations when you're using words to describe who you are and how you are, again, that's another indication that something is not aligned. The fourth thing is if you have change in belief systems. Now, we're changing our belief systems all the time, right? Thank you. But if we are changing a belief to match someone else's belief and it's not even your belief, that's a clear indicator that you are not aligned with your soul self and that you can't create a boundary around someone else's belief because it's not yours. All right, so how do we set appropriate boundaries that are totally aligned with your soul self, with who you're trying to create? The first thing that needs to happen is that you need to focus. Do you need boundaries? If you're an empath and you take on too many emotions and your life is confused and you're not clear about who you are and why you're here, that's an indicator that those emotions are not yours and that you need to focus on what's really yours. What belongs to you? If all of a sudden you're feeling sad and you walk into a room, that's not your energy, right? If you walk into a mall and you're just like, ooh, I don't even know what to shop for anymore, that means that you're taking on too much energy. You need to create a boundary around that before you even go into the mall. So focus, right? That's the number one thing. In order to set boundaries, you need to focus on what you need. What is it that you need? The second thing is, what's the boundary that you need to set? Now, we're not talking about boundaries for someone else. We're talking about boundaries for you. What kind of boundaries do you need to set? In my work, I don't work with my shamanic, earthly kind of energies any longer. I work with my shamanic galactic energies, which are to bring light and energy here to this earth to shift consciousness. When I used to use my galactic earthly energies, I dealt with demonic kind of energies, what we consider to be demonic, which really aren't demonic. They're just belief systems gone rogue. So, but I don't work with those energies any longer. So I have to set very clear boundaries in my work so that I don't attract those kinds of situations any longer. I hope that makes sense. I had to be very, very clear in the wordage that I use, and I have to be very, very clear in my own energy that says, no, we're not working with that energy any longer, so I don't even want to be a magnet to that energy. I want to be a magnet to Ascension, and I want to be a magnet to, bringing in conscious awareness into what's really the truth here. You see how that's very defining? And it tells the universe and everyone around me and everything around me of what I will do and what I won't do. That's what setting a boundary does for you, right? It doesn't keep people away from you. It sets very clear energy within you that says, this is who I'm creating. So the third thing in setting the boundaries is to use very, very clear descriptive words. Accurate and authentic words that match your energy. That's what words you want to use. The fourth thing in setting boundaries is to follow through. If you're setting a boundary up for who you are, who you're creating, then don't waver from that boundary. Don't go back and forth, because that just tells the universe that you have no idea what's happening and you don't really know what field you're playing on. You're just bouncing around like a ping pong ball. You don't really want that, because that just creates more confusion in your mind, in your emotions, right? And nobody wants to be down those rabbit holes, because that's too much work. We don't want to do work. All right. So I hope that this helps in setting up boundaries. The 4 things that you need to do in order to set boundaries is 1, focus. 2, ask what's the boundary that you need to set for yourself, right? 3 is to use very descriptive words, if you're going to use words, so that it matches your energy and that you're very authentic with who you are. And then the 4th thing is to follow through. Don't waver back and forth on creating the boundary and then releasing the boundary and then creating the boundary and then releasing it. That doesn't do you or anyone good. So there are clear indicators that if you set boundaries and they're not holding, there's clear indicators, like your feelings and your emotions don't match your words. Like there's some sort of incongruency that's creating confusion for you, which is the second one, right? So the first one is your feelings don't match your current situation, or there's some sort of edginess about you or discomfort about you. The second one is confusion. That's a clear indicator. Third one is if you have extreme shifts in emotions or sensations. And the 4th one is if you're changing your belief patterns to match someone else's, that's not your belief system, that never aligns with you. All right, so I hope that these help on setting boundaries. If you have questions, please ask them in the thread and I will get to them. Otherwise, have an amazing week and we will see you next week.